Welcome back. You're still watching Politics Tonight, digging beyond the headlines. And now to our interview with the guest of the day. I am joined by the former Commissioner for Information in Edo State, Kasim Afegbua, for discussion on comments by former President Olusegun Obasanjo that Nigeria has let Africa down with bad leadership. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, sir.
It's a pleasure all the time. Good evening.
Good evening to you. Thank you once again. So let's begin with the concept of giant of Africa. Does population simply confer leadership status of the continent on Nigeria? Afegbua.
I didn't get you. Said what?
I want us to begin with the concept of giant of Africa. So I'm asking, does population simply confer leadership status of the continent on Nigeria?
Well, thank you very much for having me. And what defines the status of nations are not necessarily the size of your population, but the quality of life of your population, the strength of the economy, the infrastructural, development, and the general well-being of the people. Of course, population can play a role, but essentially it's not a defining factor. And the fact that Nigeria has over 200 million population and is being called giant of Africa, the issue of population was not the only determinant. It was because Nigeria, after independence, was seen as a very promising nation, such that at some point, Indonesia, Malaysia, they came to Nigeria to pick the palm seedling and all of that. So they were looking at Nigeria, in a 20 years, 30 years, and 40 years rolling plan and see that where we're going to be. And with our oil, sixth largest producer of oil in the world at some point, and the kind of money and resources that we have, our GDP and what have you, the expectation will be that, yes, we should be considered as a giant of Africa. Don't forget that South Africa went on through a lot of apartheid, and Nigeria played a very strong role in ensuring that apartheid was a thing of the past, or became a thing of the past. Also in West African sub-region, Nigeria played a formidable role in ensuring that there was return to democracy, where there were arms insurrection. Nigeria went there. We had ECOMOG in Liberia, we had in Sierra Leone, we fought in Congo Republic, and so many other places that we had to deploy our own army to help, peacekeeping and what have you. And so Nigeria is quite a formidable partner in the African continent, and because of the roles we have played in some of these countries, is seen as a giant of Africa. Aside from our land size, aside from population, you can also add resources, because there is huge resources in this country. What is the problem? What has been the bane is monumental corruption that has eaten into the fabric of the nation at every point in time.
So having said that, and again, does Nigeria see itself as giant of Africa, or just what the outside world portrays it to be?
No, we are giant of Africa. It's just, even when you look at our foreign policy, it's Afrocentric. And because of that Afrocentric policy, of the country, in terms of our foreign policy, you see us participating in quite a number of engagements at the West African sub-region and even the continent as a whole. Just like I said earlier on, you can't wish Nigeria away. We Nigerians may not appreciate, how much value we represent in the African continent, but when you interact with other nationals, you see that there is so much of paradise here, so to speak. You may not see it because we are Nigerians who don't appreciate ourselves, but when you go outside this country and you see people, you tell people you are a Nigerian, you see the kind of respect they give you, especially in the African continent. Just look at Gambia when they did the election sometimes and the former president was trying to behave funny. It took the intervention of Nigeria under President Buhari then to, to wade into the issue, and there was smooth transfer of power to the man who won election. There was a time when there was a coup in Chad, and I remember that was under President Obasanjo. He had to move to Chad and said that they must return the man who was torpedoed, they must return him back to power. And he sat there and they did it and they struck a deal. And that also put pay to whatever violence and crisis that was going to spring up from Chad Republic. And so there are quite a number of roles we have played as Giant of Africa and all of that, even though we have taken we have made some mistakes, particularly like the Bakassi, ceding Bakassi to Cameroon and all of that. We have done well in some aspects, but there's still more to be done to actually, concretize our role as Big Brother and Giant of Africa, as it were.
All right, then. So I'm sure you must have read the speech. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo says Nigeria has let itself, Africa and the world down with bad leadership. Do you share this sentiment?
Well, I don't know. He, as a former president, he has his own criteria for coming to that conclusion. But again, I'm happy that he's sharing from the blame game. He was the president as a military head of state. When there was oil boom, he spent 3 years, handed over to democracy. He came back again and spent 8 years. 11 years in the life of this nation under President Obasanjo. So if he's making such a statement, that means he's also seeing his leadership intervention at every point as one that has not lived up to expectation. But essentially, I know that during his time, he did a lot of, there was a lot of globe-trotting, because we're just coming out from military interregnum under Abacha and Abu Salami. And so it was the first time we're having democracy after such a long time. And so from 1999 to 2007, when Obasanjo presided over this country, there were a lot of traveling across the world to try to, remove the tag or the stigma of being a pariah nation to one that's now became respectful in the Committee of Nations. He may have his reason, but whatever reasons he's given, he has to share from that blame. And it's a collective, and tell you that, no, this is not the way to go. So leaders that are governed by public opinion are most likely going to miss the route, to El Dorado, than those who have a vision and they can speak to that vision, they can articulate that vision, and pursue that vision with equanimity of purpose, with national patriotism, with national cohesion, deepen dialogue, deepen conversation, so that people can have a buy-in into such vision. For me, it's like this new government came on stream. They came up with the issue of subsidy removal from the very first day. There were a cacophony of voices, such that some persons were saying, no, we will have come with palliative first before removal. Some say if you don't remove, if they allow the government to settle down, the economic predictors and buccaneers who have dominated the subsidy scam will derail the focus of the new government. So it's a matter of choice. The president came on stream and just removed the subsidy and said, let us deal with the consequences of it, which they are handling. So it depends on leadership. It also depends on the followers. It's a two-way traffic. So for me, Obasanjo may have a point in what he's saying, but he must accept responsibility for much of the failure.
All right. So in a nutshell, you're on the side of those Nigerians who are saying the former president should not champion such discourse because it was part of the problem.
It's not doing what?
So I'm asking, does that mean you're on the side of those Nigerians who are saying the former president should not champion such discourse because he was part of the problem?
Well, under the Constitution, he has a right to own an opinion. In fact, every 200 million Nigerians, if you have the speaking age, you have a right to own an opinion. It's an inalienable right that cannot be taken away from you because it's guaranteed under the Constitution. But again, when he was president for 8 years, how much of impact did he create? How much of contribution did he give to the country to take it away from the disappointment he's talking about? If we do a rundown of the Obasanjo regime, I'm sure that we are going to have a lot of minuses, and it's called a few pluses and all of that. But again, Nigerians must consciously and deliberately embrace this country as one of the best in the world. We have our challenges, just like every other country. And I keep telling people, some of us have had the privilege of traveling to other countries and all of that. This is the country that I want to live. This is the country that I want to invest. This is the country that I want to be called a first-class citizen of this country. Elsewhere, I'm second class or third class. I'm even maybe not even recognized and all of that. But back home, I live like a prince that I am. And to the glory of God, I share in the aspirations, of the country. There are poverty everywhere. There are issues everywhere. There are internally displaced persons in a lot of places and all of that, which are consequences of existential problems and challenges confronting us as a nation. But again, we must invest hope. We must invest, courage. We must invest determination to confront these challenges without let or hindrance. Of course, if you're talking about insecurity, we should all be part and parcel of the process of addressing insecurity, because an information given to security agencies can help to mitigate or even nip in the bud an issue or violence or an insecurity issue that may come up. And so when government is setting out to look for solutions, setting out to look for initiatives and improvised methods and means that they would deploy to help address a number of issues, the citizenry must buy into it. And in doing that, government must consciously ensure that they engage the citizenry in communication, in dialogue, in conversation, and towards building a national cohesion. Nigeria is a unique country. We have over 470 ethnic multiplicities, which can be categorized into sub-nationalities as they are. And in contemporary political studies, you must cater for the interests of those sub-nationalities, which are sub-nations, buy into the aspiration, then build them into a national conversation so that whatever you are doing as a federal government can also impact on the well-being of all the citizenry. And the state government, they have a responsibility. The local government, they have a responsibility. All of these are not being put together in a wholesome manner. What we often see is putting the blame on the federal government at all times. Of course, our constitution needs to be tinkered with because there are complementary laws that should be put in place to define the relationship between the federal and the state government and the local government. As we speak, in contemporary world, state government are still holding the allocations to local government. That's curious. Then the state government, they do things, they tell you federal road, federal this, federal that. Though even when the roads are located within the state the states, they don't get to address that, So they'll tell you, the federal government say we shouldn't touch this road and all of that. We must begin to redirect our minds to things, putting in place laws that will help to define this relationship, make our laws complementary. It's like the issue of state police. We have been arguing for this for a long time. But it's not forthcoming because of the attitude and character of some of our governors. They want to the likelihood of taking over the state policing to use it as a political weapon against their opponents will be so rife. And so we are losing something from there. In other democracies, you see the sheriff, you see the police and all of that, and they play complementary. What is a crime in Edo State, for example, may not be a crime in Delta. It depends on the laws that exist. So all of these have to be put into perspectives in defining our roadmap for a more egalitarian society that would be within the ambit of the people's expectations and aspirations.
All right, thank you, Mr. Afegbua. I'm sure you would agree with me that one way to measure a country's greatness is infrastructure development. Will you say Nigeria ticks the boxes on this?
Well, we have a long road to go. I was telling a friend sometimes last week that look at Abuja, for example. The only difference between Abuja and some other, state capitals or nation capitals is the absence of the tube, railway service. The road network in Abuja, they are quite commendable. Somebody did that. It's been improved upon. Then if you have tube in Abuja, for example, people coming from Suleja, Gwagwalada, Mararaba and all of that, coming to the city center, they will have easy ways of transport. But all of this take a lot of resources. It is not that we don't have these resources. We have resources. But these resources, much of it ends in the pocket of those who are called to preside or to preside, in our agencies, parastatals, and what have you. You will hear some money being stolen or being misappropriated, and you'll be wondering how possible is that. One individual, they will be accusing one individual of 150 billion. You will hear some other person 200 billion. You will hear some other person's $500 million. Then you'll be wondering, what do they want to live for 1,000 years for them to appropriate or misappropriate this kind of resources to themselves? But again, it's all a matter of policy. If there is a government welfare policy that caters for the aged, that caters for the retirees, and that caters for those who are unable to work, and there is a state responsibility towards the citizenry, then the confidence to retire and be sure that you won't go poor or you won't suffer the consequences of not saving enough will not be there. So people oftentimes end up stealing so much to prepare for the rainy day, so to speak. So it's a huge problem. And for me, I think this current government is going to have a lot of energy. They need to put a lot of energy into what is confronting them, what they inherited. They need to invest more in infrastructural development. We have opportunity to grow our economy better than before. We need to deepen our rail transport network. We need to also improve on other means of transportation. We need to improve on the quality of our roads. And if you go to some of these West African countries, for example, you know that Nigeria is an El Dorado, because I've visited quite a number of them. And when you are traveling away from their state capitals and national headquarters or whatever, what you see along the road, I saw. Like when I went to Liberia sometimes and I saw roads leading to Banga and all of that, consequences of war. I was wondering, I said, Nigeria should really thank God that we still have dual carriageway from Abuja, for example, to Kano, from here to Lokoja, from Benin to Lagos, The state of those roads may not be the best in terms of repairs and maintenance, but government, responsible government and responsive government must continue to invest in ensuring that there is infrastructural renewal and revamping so as to make life bearable for the ordinary persons and other road users.
So, quickly in 30 seconds, so almost out of time, with dwindling government revenue and claims that the time of acting as Big Brother is over, how does Nigeria assert itself as the continental and global leader?
You see, the period of Big Brother is not over. You don't forget that we are an Anglophone country that is sitting in the middle of Francophone countries. All our neighbors are Francophone countries. Niger, Togo, Benin Republic, Cameroon, and what have you. And so you must consciously and deliberately set the tone that to make these peoples to feel at home with you so that they don't see you as an unwanted aggressor, so to speak, in terms of how you relate to them when you are talking about, inter-country boundary adjustment or boundary protection and what have you. They will also show some level of cooperation. So you must play certain role. I remember one of the former presidents was telling me that there was a minister who said we should stop supplying electricity to Niger Republic at some point and all of that. And this is a professor who was serving as a minister. Said, why are we giving electricity to Niger Republic and all that? Forgetting that even Futajalon, where the River Niger comes from, did not start from Nigeria. If they decide to dam River Niger elsewhere, outside the country, and they do their own hydro electricity, whatever, then it's going to affect whatever you think you have built in Kanji Dam in this part of the world. So you need to strategically position your country in a manner that will make others comfortable with you and also pursue your own legitimate aspirations as a country in terms of your foreign policy and your involvement and your engagement in what happens around you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Afegbua. I've been speaking with the former Commissioner for Information in Edo State, Kasim Afegbua. Tonight, we discussed the comments by former President Olusegun Obasanjo that Nigeria has let Africa down with bad leadership. Thank you very much, Mr. Afegbua, for always finding time to join us on the program. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, always. Thank you. I appreciate it.